Hi, everyone. It is Coach Vicki with another episode of Optimal Life Balance, where you take charge of your life and have fun along the way. Today, we're going to be going a little bit into about conflict resolutions or when we are up against something that goes against what we believe for it. And we'd hate to admit it, but we all admit that we don't like conflict or conflictions with people or getting in that sticky situation with it. But we also all know that it happens for it. And but the biggest thing is how do we handle it? We need to learn to take control of what is happening in the situation, to ask God for guidance, or just to even stop and take a breath ourselves before we react. Because that's what the biggest thing is what happens with conflict. What I find with it first with conflict, most of the times it happens because of miscommunication or how you're communicating with somebody and they take it the wrong way. The example of that is you can say, I'll be right back. Well, you're just saying, I'll be right back, but you can say, I'll be right back. Or, that I'll be right back. All right. Yes, it's the same words, but just the tone and the mannerism that comes with it can make the difference in how it comes across, that it could cause a conflict because somebody could think you're pissed at them or you're upset with them, or they're like, I just asked a simple question. Why are you jumping all down my throat? But it is that type of thing that we don't sometimes stop and realize how we are being perspective to others and how we take what they say and how we sometimes try to avoid a conflict that we could also wind up causing conflict for it. So today we're kind of just going to go briefly over some of the things that, God has said that we are going to be going through journeys, and it does not mean that we're never going to have a conflict or a hard time or decisions to make, but that we can make it through any of them when we look to Him or when we just stop and realize that what is our value and where we want to be, and is it worth being so to have a conflict over this situation. I remember as a parent, and for it is when if you kept telling the kids no, 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 that they can't touch this, no, they can't have that, no, this, pick your battles on what you want to say no to. Is it really so bad if they do that? Where if they're going to be no that touch an electrical outlet, there's a no for it. So that's a form of conflict, a form of deciding to have decisions making or whatever, or being against each other, or having one person one way and one person the other way. But the same token is picking what there are certain times that you need to stand up for your things, and it may cause a conflict because it's against your values or what you stand for. But then there's other times that a conflict isn't really worth fighting over, or whatever it is in a relationship or whatever it may be. To me, is the same token is everybody's opinion is their opinion. If it doesn't belong or doesn't believe or doesn't stand for the same opinion in mine, it's not wrong. Maybe it's not wrong if that's what they think else. And I'm not going to persuade them to believe what I believe, but the same token, I'm not going to stop believing what I believe because of what they say. On that, I'm not going to let them persuade me into being shifting where my core value of what it is, just to not have a conflict, just to not get into a disagreement or whatever you want to call it. So when you're doing, you've got a situation, say, that's coming up, that you're going to a party or you're going to an event, and this one person you've always um, have problems with, if it's a family member or friend, that you always seem to get into each other, or they get on each other. They know what buttons to push for you. Is before you even go there, sometimes you can get out of it, sometimes you can't. But to me, I won't get don't get out of it if it's something you want to do because they're there on there. If it's something you don't want to go do and something, and that's a different thing. But if it's someplace you want to go and it's a family gathering or whatever it may be, do not let this other person make you not go because you feel that you're going to be uncomfortable, because that gives them power, and you don't shouldn't give your power over to anybody. So before you go, you may want to pray or think ahead of a game plan, that if they say this, I'm going to ignore this. If they do this, I'm going to do this. On that, but in the same token, don't expect a problem before it happens. On that, they may be thinking the same thing and don't want no conflict either, and are going to be on their best behavior. So don't start in thinking that it's going to be worse that on there, or coming in with the attitude that they're going to say something and I'm just going to have to do this. You want to be prepared, but you don't want to you want to come in with an open mind. You want to be respectful. You want to be gentle and humble with it. You want to make sure that you are being true to who you are and what you want to be, but don't expect someone else to change for you. But don't also then condemn somebody before they do something. Um, but you want to seek and to build up yourself and build up other ones. Find out the truth of what's going on. You know, and go with it. Like I said, if you've got, like, go back into that family situation that you go into a gathering, and that one uncle or that brother-in-law or a friend or who's ever there is somebody, you know what, you just don't get along with on there, but they're part of the family, they're part of the thing, so you can't really disown them per se. But what you can do is when you come in and say hello, you don't have to go up to them. You don't either ignore them. So if they come to you or something you rude, but you don't have to put yourself in that situation of sitting around with them when they're talking and stuff. Stay on the other side of the house when for it, so that you don't put yourself in that conflict. The same as when you're going and doing stuff, don't put yourself in danger or conflict of your values by going to a show that that you don't like the language or the content of the movie, or don't put yourself in the conflict of going to that event that their beliefs that they stand for are nothing like you do, because everyone says, oh, let's come on, just have fun. Those kind of conflicts, you need to stand strong and stand to your ground for it. But then there's this other smaller ones that you can still put what we call a hazmat suit around you, if not even better, put the armor of God around you, to walk in with holding yourself to a higher standard into it. Not that you're better, but better that you know that you're not going to let anybody take your power and take and control what you are feeling and how you are going to not enjoy yourself. When there is a conflict, that sometimes we need to just listen to somebody. So if somebody has a problem with you, or what it may be, is you want to listen with an open mind on it, because listening is same as you want them to hear you, you want to hear them, they want to be heard. So listen to what both sides of the story, and listening to what's going on and how their perception of something is, because that's again goes back to where I said before about communication. It's somebody's perception of, there's two sides to every story, and then there's the truth in the middle, and it's each person's perception of that same story or vision of how they saw it through their eyes, through their values, through their beliefs, is where the answer comes from. So when we look at things that way, we're easier to forgive somebody for it, because that's the way they thought it, and it was not what you meant. So you can say, I'm sorry that you took it this way. That is not my intentions to have you feel that way. So can we work that out? But when you just kind of go, well, that's the way you feel, then fine, I'll do the same thing. Two wrongs don't make a right, is what I think was the phrase that goes with it. but it all it's going to do is burden you. When somebody wrongs you or hurts you, now we're not talking about physical or mental, hurt there. That is something totally different. If you're in that situation, please make sure you get help. I'm talking about that if somebody hurts you into about forgiving them and stuff like that, it does not mean you have to forgive the action. It means you forgive to let go, because what happens is the same as somebody's bullying you or any of that type of things that are happening. Most of the times they do it because they have a lack of insecurity themselves somewhere in their past, and that's their problem. But when you have that person who pushes your buttons or tries to cause conflict with you and you react, you give them the power. When you then say no on that and don't react or don't come back at them with it, you took the power to you and it makes them back down for it. And again, if it comes to a whole physical, that's a different situation we're talking about there uh, for it. But really start to, when you start doing what we've discussed the last few weeks of finding your purpose, finding your inner self and your values, when these conflicts come up, you have a good foundation to stand on so that no one can knock you over. And they may push a little bit, but you can bounce back. You won't be down for the what's down for the count, because you know that God has got your back. You are have a purpose. Everyone's not going to believe what you believe or think the same way you do. If everyone did in the world, we'd have a very boring world with it. But in the same token, you know where you are and what battles you should pick and fight, and what battles are not worth using your time and your energy and defeating who you are, because what others think you cannot control. You can control how you are and how you perception of yourself to how you pour yourself out, but how others accept it or how they may twist it or think of it differently, you can't control that. The only thing you know is, as long as you have integrity with yourself, with God, that you are being true to yourself on there, that's all that matters. That's all you can control. And you have 100% control of that. So, what we want to do is we want to kind of just commit to ourselves to take it when a thing comes up, that we are going to kind of step back. A lot of times, the best thing to do is take a deep breath and not to just knee jerk react into thinking, what do I need to do? What is the situation that I'm in? Is it something I need to get out of because it's bad for me or the family, thing else to it? Is it something I can work on? Is it something I need to bother with at all? On that it's their problem, and just step away from it. So when you are not sure of those type of things, those are the kind of things that's good to talk with somebody for. You, as a coach, I can help you through some basics of that. But if it's a abusive things, we're going to get you help. But you may want to talk to your pastor for it. But as a coach, what I help you with is trying to identify what your purpose is, who you are, and how to stand up for yourself when needed. And so that you've got that foundation. So when things do get maybe out of control, or you come up with that, you got that problem with a person in your life that's coming up with, you can feel good about yourself on how you handled it. And so the next time they will have known that they can't do that to you, because you are not going to react the way they want you to. For they want to get you goat as a phrase to it. They want to get a reaction out of you, and when you don't get the reaction, it's worse into it that they usually back down. I remember this is a fun story about it. My mom and dad, if they got into a kind of an argument or disagreement or whatever on that, and mom had enough with it, she'd be silent. She just wouldn't say a word on that. It drove my father crazy. It drove him crazy to try to think else. She's like, the conversation is done. We're not talking about it anymore. For it, and it drove him crazy to the point that then he had to just be quiet, because it was like, she goes, if we don't stop, it's going to be worse. So let me cool down and let's just stop this conversation now, and we will work on it later. On that, and it just made me think is sometimes you need to just stop the conflict, the conversation, take a deep breath, step back. Before you say something you cannot take back, because they say sticks and stones will break your words, or words will never hurt you. Words are very hurtful. Words and thoughts and how you act are very hurtful to yourself and to others. So when things come up as in conflicts for you, I want you to start really thinking, who are you, what you can do, and how you can move forward with those conflicts. And when you start utilizing everything that we've been working on the last few weeks and stuff I've gotten prior to, is this is all the things I work with clients on determining where you want to work on, and start figuring out how to keep track of action steps and things that we can do to start making those little small mind shifts of things. And when something comes up, how to step back a second and think before reacting. So, with that being said, I want to just thank everybody for being here today, and have a blessed and fun day until we see you next time.